I was hoping this was going to be a relatively quick video where I just talk about the updated off-season schedule that MLS just released back on Tuesday, where they talk about the preseason for teams in CCL and teams that is not in CCL, primary transfer window, secondary transfer window, roster compliance, and roster freeze date. But today, it was announced that MLS have put the schedule for all 24, or actually not 2014, 2016, because there's Inter Miami and Nashville coming into the league this season, which now brings the league team total to 26 teams. That's why this video is going to be a little bit longer than what I intended to be. But I'm still going to try to quickly do this video and kind of just quickly look at every single team in terms of their season opener. But as I said before, the season, of course, begins in February, and I think there's got to be kind of a big asterisk in terms of the fact that the season starts in February, because technically, yes, some games does start in February, but on that same weekend, some teams also play, and by the time those team plays, it's already March, and that for teams that play in the first week on Saturday, technically, yeah, they're still starting their season in February. But for teams that play on Sunday, yeah, they can basically say that, well, our season didn't start in February. Our season started in March too. And I also heard somebody said that this season, despite the fact that MLS saying that they're starting this season early, no, that's not the case, because it seemed like last season MLS start on the 9th week of the year, and that this season it also starts on the 9th week of the year. But MLS likes to kind of just trying to make us not think about the fact that, yeah, we basically are starting the same time, but we're just pushing a month earlier, even though, you know, it's only like a day earlier than previous season. And the fact that since this season and this year is a leap year, that's why they kind of say that, well, we're playing on February and we're playing on this leap day, and then or leap year day, and then the very next day it's just going to be March, and that's usually when the MLS season start. But either way, let's get into the home opener, and the first game is going to be DC versus Colorado at 1 p.m. Eastern. Early part of the season there's going to be a ton of day games, because most of the time when you are playing at this time of the period, it's going to be frigid cold in the East Coast, and that you're going to see a lot of early kickoff game in the beginning of the season, because usually these East Coast teams that are playing in kind of a cold weather condition have to play in the daytime, and that you don't want to, MLSs definitely don't want to have these East Coast team or have a game that is forced to be playing at the nighttime, and it's going to be like 30 degrees and snowing, and that, MLS want to really avoid that, even though we love to see snow games, and that we are very fortunate the fact that the last 2 years there's at least been one game that has been snow. Then follow that at 3 p.m. Eastern, we got Montreal versus New England. This game is going to be taking place at the Olympic Stadium, because obviously it's unplayable in February if you're going to be playing at Stade Saputo and you're going to be playing in Montreal in an open air kind of stadium. So that's why they play it at the Olympic Stadium, usually in the early part of the season and the latter part of the season. Then you got Houston take on the Galaxy at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. This is kind of an interesting one, because for the last couple of years, this has always been the last match. These two teams usually face off on decision day, and this year they decided that, well, we're going to just push this to the first game of the season. And I'm pretty sure Galaxy fans are happy the fact that this is the first game of the season, because for whatever reason, whenever they play against Houston, they always tend to lose on decision day and cost them a couple of spots, or even get knocked out of the playoffs. Then after that, we got the Quakes playing against TFC at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. The Quakes, I have a feeling they're going to have a tougher schedule to begin the start of the season, which I have no problem with that. I mean, as long as if the Quakes are going to have a schedule at the end of the season that is not murderous row and playing top 5 team every single week, then I'm definitely fine with it. And I'm fine with the fact that, just get these tough team in the beginning of the season and get them out of the way, so that we don't have to worry, and that when we really need points, we don't have to worry about facing these tough teams, and that it's going to be almost an impossible task to get all 3 points. Then you got FC Dallas take on the Union at 6 p.m. Eastern, followed by Orlando City taking on RSL at the same time. Then you got Nashville versus Atlanta at 8 p.m. Eastern. This game was already announced a couple of months ago. And then finally, to finish off the night, we got Vancouver taking on Sporting KC at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 7:30 p.m. Pacific time and 7:30 p.m. in Vancouver's time. Then on Sunday, on March 1st, we got Columbus take on NYC FC at a 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, it's an early kickoff, and as much as I really hate these early kickoff, I understand why. That is the case, that MLS wants to make sure these teams are going to be playing right near the middle of the day or right like in the afternoon, so that the temperature is still going to be warm enough where teams are not going to complain the fact that it's just too cold to play a MLS game. Then you got the Red Bulls take on FC Cincinnati just 30 minutes after the Columbus versus NYCFC game kicks off. Then at 3 p.m. Eastern, this is when the defending champion Seattle Sounders will be taking on the Chicago Fire. I expect this game might be nationally televised, and that Seattle is going to have a banner ceremony in that game. Then after that, we got LAFC take on Inter Miami. So Inter Miami, first ever MLS game, is going to be on the road against the Supporters Shield winner, and I'm actually even thinking about maybe going to this game too, because since this game takes off at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 in LA time, I think I could have enough time where I can just drive down to LA and get back, and I would be getting back here at 11 o'clock. Then we got Portland versus Minnesota at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I think this is like the third time in the last 4 years that Portland season opener is against Minnesota. Not quite sure why exactly that is the case. I guess the schedule maker loved to see a Portland versus Minnesota match in the season opener. Then we got New England take on Chicago at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by RSL versus Red Bulls at 2 p.m. Eastern. Oh, by the way, this is actually the second week of the schedule, so the Portland versus Minnesota game is actually the last game of week number 1. But now moving on to week number 2, as I mentioned, these two games, we got TFC versus NYCFC at 5 p.m. Eastern, followed by Atlanta versus FC Cincinnati at 7 p.m. Eastern. Then we got SKC versus Houston at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. This should be a very fun matchup because both of these teams tend to not like each other. Then we got Colorado versus Orlando City at 9 p.m. Eastern, followed by the last game on Saturday with the Galaxy versus Vancouver at 10 p.m. Eastern. Well, I think that should be the last game of Saturday, depending on if there's going to be any other West Coast team that is going to be kicking off later than 10 p.m. Eastern. Then we got NYCFC versus FC Dallas, as we're now moving on to week number 3 of the season at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by Miami making their home debut against the Galaxy at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. This one, like the Nashville versus Atlanta match, have already announced a couple of months ago. Then we got FC Cincinnati take on DC United at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, before finishing off the debut for week number 3, or the season home opener for week number 3, with the Union take on the Quakes at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Then on Sunday, we got Minnesota take on the Red Bulls at 7 p.m. Eastern. And this is a very interesting one because, playing soccer in Minnesota and especially in Minneapolis in March, we saw what happened last time when they tried to do that, which it was just a snowy condition, and now they are potentially not only risk to potentially have that kind of outcome, but this game is a night game too. Again, I'm not complaining the fact that this match, of course, might be playing in a snowy condition and it might be incredibly cold when this game takes place, but I'm pretty sure the coaches for both of these teams are going to be a little bit ticked off the fact that they're going to have to play in snowy condition and that it's going to be just absolutely frigid when this game takes place. Then finally, the last home opener is going to be Chicago versus Atlanta at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. This one was also announced a couple of months ago when it was announced who exactly is going to be the opponent that Chicago is going to be facing once they head back to Soldier Field for the first time in almost a decade. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for all the team in terms of their season opener. Now, in terms of the updated off-season schedule, and for those of you wondering when exactly the full season schedule is going to be announced, well, the full season schedule is going to be announced early January. Usually, it's announced in the first week of January. I know last year when they announced the full schedule, it was in the first week of January, so I think it might be the same case this year too. Then preseason for teams that is in CCL, so for the 5 teams that is going to be in the CONCACAF Champions League, that is LAFC, NYC FC, Montreal, who else? Seattle, and there was also one more team, Atlanta. All those teams that is going to be going to the CONCACAF Champions League, they're going to have a preseason a week earlier than every other teams that is not going to be in CCL, and that every other team that's not in CCL is going to be on January 18th. Now, the primary transfer window opens on February 12th to May 5th, and for those of you wondering why exactly we're hearing news about players that has been able to get traded, and we have heard some signings that are players coming from overseas to play in MLS, and why are we hearing these kind of news when the primary transfer window hasn't opened? Well, the reason why we've been hearing that clubs have been able to sign these players is because technically they haven't really signed them. It's just that they pretty much kind of signed them on a pre-contract, where once the transfer window opens, that's when they can officially pretty much put that signature on, and that's when that player is going to be registered into the roster of that club. So that of course starts in February 12th and it lasts all the way to May 5th. And it's the same thing in the secondary transfer window, where outside of the transfer window in the regular season and after May 5th, you might hear some rumors and signings of players before the secondary transfer window opens, and that those players usually are able to sign with those clubs when the transfer window opens, and that, you know, it's basically the same thing. They're basically going to get a pre-contract, and that they will officially be registered in the roster once the transfer window opens. Now, the roster compliance is going to be happening on February 28th, which is a day before the season begins, and then the roster freeze will be happening on September 1st, which is the last month of the season. But yeah, either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what is the most intriguing home opener that you can see on this board. Obviously, if I have to pick one, I would say LAFC versus Miami, considering the fact that, you know, it's the Supporter Shield winner against a team that really wants to be kind of like the LAFC and Atlanta in the expansion year. And another game that I also want to watch out for is the other Miami match, Miami versus the Galaxy. Obviously, David Beckham facing against the team that he used to play and the team that he won a couple of MLS Cup when he was a player. That should be a very intriguing match too. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what's the most intriguing home opener this season. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.